No. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Oof. 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 That's bad. Like, that's really bad.
The end ones are good.
Yeah. That's a problem. Yeah, you see what this one was walking around. That's a problem. Oof. Oof.
What happened there?
Blue.
I mean, that looks like they did that on purpose. It's
Yeah.
on both sides of it.
Okay, this is... We got some issues here, brother man.
Just challenges.
That took a huge amount of heat. It's not a happy day in Hemi City, is it, Andy?
No.
There's a reason I don't mess with these motors. Okay, so come closer if you dare. Oh man, we've... So, on his first appearances, everything looked good here. And even the repair, so this is the window that was in there, and you see there's a chunk missing out the bottom of the bore right there. No big deal, right? Completely harmless. We didn't really find any problems until we went to take the crank out. So here's what we got.
There's 5.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So, if you're familiar with the bottom end of engines, you know that the cap fits in. This is all engines. It doesn't have to be a Chrysler or a Hemi. All engines. The cap will always fit into a register on the side of the block. Okay, so here's a register, and here's the flat edge of the cap that fits in there. So when we take this, our number 5 cap, and we fit it in here, well, you'll see it's tight. I got to hit it to get it in there. It doesn't want to move. It's tight. To get it out, when the crank is in there, it takes a little gymnastics, a little back and forth action to get it out. But here, you can see this thing is like, I got to work to get it out. When we got to number 4, or I got it. You see, this cap is just floating in its space. So this cap does not belong to this block. If we take number 5, okay, we fit it into the register, it also fits these other journals correctly, saddles correctly. Okay? But now, when we take, you have that thrust bearing. So this is the important one. I'll show you this in a second. So when we take our number 3, our thrust cap, we put it in there. Look at the side-to-side play we got. This thing is just flopping around. There's nothing holding it in place. 2 things. First, that is why Hemis have these cross bolts, because it's sustained high RPM use, over 6,000, NASCAR type of use. The caps will walk due to the harmonics in the bottom end. And that's why they added these cross bolts here. If the cap doesn't fit the register correctly, these cross bolts won't do the trick. They won't do anything. The cap is still going to want to walk around. So here, so okay, here's the top half of the thrust bearing, right? The number 3 thrust bearing. And you see that it's even across. Now here's the cap half. You see what we got going on here? It actually got hot enough to turn this area blue. Right? This is a recipe for disaster because the cap was cocked. You see that this half of the shell was held in place steady by the saddle, but this half was moving around, and so that's why we've got this blue here, this discoloration. We look at, that's from number 4, is it?
Yes.
Okay. So here's the bearing shell from number 4, and look what we have here. We got wear mark here, and then nothing, and then look, we got a wear mark here, and then nothing. So this was actually cocked in the shell. Right? This is a problem. You know, this engine was never really leaned on. I don't think it was really leaned on, right? But in the event that you actually put a load to this thing, a high RPM load, these areas where you see that scuff, well, those will get hot enough that this bearing will grab, or the crank will grab the bearing and give it a spin. That's how you kill the bottom end of a motor. And that's what we got here. So it is, I mean, it's a good thing we tore this thing apart and looked it all over. Oh, we got the crank. Yep. Look at this. This is great. On the crankshaft. Now the crank gives a good ring, right? Yep. The crank gives a decent ring. It's not that sharp bell ringing type of ring that you want to hear, but it's not dead or played out, and it doesn't have separate tones that would indicate a crack anywhere in it. But also, this crank has been like overbalanced. You see, metal was added here, and
taken away up here.
Yeah, this crank is indicative of what you would find in, let's say, a circle track motor. You know, because drag motors, they don't really go crazy with with balancing to the nth degree. Circle track motors do, and this thing was at some point really, gone over. And that's good. What's bad is that we're missing big chunks off of this oil slinger section. So if you don't know what you're looking at here, this is where the bearing surface is, and out to the side is where the oil would leave that main bearing, excess oil. Well, this flange is an oil slinger, and it keeps the oil from going directly onto the back of the seal, the rear main seal, which rides here. So you see here's a section where it's intact, and you see it makes a nice diverter. The oil comes out and goes straight down. But here, the oil comes out and it has no place to go except right to the back of the rear main seal. Now this thing hadn't been leaking. There's no sign that it's been leaking. That's not to say that it won't over time, because it had a relatively new seal in it. And it's not to say it won't once it gets really hot. So this, we still don't know what we're going to do with this yet.
And it was standard. So
it is standard.
It hasn't been cut for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's a nice crank, except for that. So, the solution to this, we have to. I want to triple check everything on measurements and make sure that the main line of the block is still true. But it looks to me at this point, after we've checked it a couple of times, it looks to me at this point that the saddle structures of the block are intact. There's no cracks or anything like that, and they don't appear to be stressed or stretched outward this way. So it looks like we're just going to have to pick up a set of 3 center main caps. The block's going to have to go to a machine shop, and it's going to have to be line bored to get everything, in order. Having fun yet?
We are. Lots of it.
Is this your first Hemi adventure?
This is.
You realize they're all kind of like this.
This might be my last Hemi adventure.
Right? So that's it for now. You probably will not see this block for, 3 weeks, a month. By the time we get all of the parts for it, it gets to a machine shop, gets back to us, and we can start reassembling it. It's going to be a little while. So, but you're going to come down next week?
It really depends on parts, Tony.
If we have the tank and the...
if we have the other stuff too.
Yeah. So between then and now, we'll probably get the fuel lines and the tank and the rear brakes and all the other stuff done to the car. So we'll update you there. That's it.
I'll see you in a few weeks.
Yeah. I'll see you tomorrow.